folks. I wanted to walk through some of the steps of the opinion essay with you to help you out with actually getting started with your writing. So, last week for week one, I asked you to choose one of these quotes to either agree or disagree with based on what you've read in either of your novels. So, I'm recording this video for both my grade 10s and my grade 11s. If you're in grade 10, you're using The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian and a film or a TV show that also helps you support your opinion. If you're in grade 11, you're using The Last Book in the Universe and a film or TV show that also helps to support your opinion. So, what I've done as an example is I've chosen a totally different quote just to work with, something different than what I've posted for you, so that I can show you how to do this. So, the quote that I've selected is, "Friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, 'What? You too? I thought I was the only one.'" So the first thing I did, I would have done this last week, week one of the essay assignment, is make a T-chart. My T-chart has agree on one side and disagree on the other side. And I've listed the ideas I have in response to that quote. So on the agree side, I say that I agree with this quote because of shared experiences. So people have the experience of shared discrimination, shared history, and shared self doubt. And by connecting over those shared experiences, a friendship is created. I also have the point that it's easier to connect with someone that has someone in common with you. And we see this when we see in our real lives cliques forming in friendships, people bonding over common tastes in music and fashion. And then I started to look at the novels. So for True Diary, I would say Gordy and Junior are an example of this, or Rowdy and Junior, or Penelope and Junior. They all have shared experiences and shared like common interests that they can bond over that forms a relationship. The same can be said for The Last Book in the Universe. We see examples of Littleface and Ryder connecting with Spaz in order to form a friendship. And in class, we looked at the TV series Freaks and Geeks. I might choose that television show to use and talk about Sam or Millie or Lindsay and the friendships they form based on common experiences, common interests. Now, on the disagree side, I only had really a couple of points. I had sometimes opposites attract. And I also have the example of Lanaya being so different than Spaz from Last Book in the Universe. You might even use the example of the bully in Reardon and him forming a relationship with Junior, even though Junior like punches him. You know, these are differences between them. But really, I have way more to go with on the agree side than on the disagree side. So I've decided to go with agree. My opinion is that I agree with this statement because I have way more to work with on my agree side. So that was last week's work. Now that I have that done, that's the thinking for my essay. Now I'm going to move on to this week's work. This week's work has to do with actually writing your paragraphs. So what I would do here, I'm going to just insert another page here, and I'll go right down to the bottom, and I'm going to start writing up my draft just to show you what this can look like. So if I'm writing the draft of this essay, I would start off by stating my opinion. Stating my opinion is my thesis statement. I'm not going to start by writing my whole entire introduction. I'm simply going to start by stating my opinion and writing down my thesis. So I'm going to take my quote and I'm simply going to say, "It is true that," and I'm going to paste my quote in there. "It's true that friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, 'What? You too? I thought I was the only one.'" So I'm stating that that's what I believe, that I think it is true, and that is my opinion. That's my thesis statement. That sentence is later on going to become the last sentence of our introduction. But we're not writing our intro yet. We're going to start with our body paragraphs. So my first body paragraph, this is where I'm going to go to my chart and I'm going to take one statement. I'm going to look at this and take an idea that I can form a paragraph based on. So the first thing I'm going to do is shared history. And I'm going to start my paragraph off. I'm going to start my paragraph off by talking about shared history. So I'm going to say something like, um, it is true that friendship starts at the moment when one person notices a shared experience, like shared history with another person, period. And for this, I'm going to start off with Rowdy and Junior, and I'm going to use the Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian for my example. And because I've made my point now, so that's my point, I'm going to move on to my proof. So just like any other essay, my body paragraphs are going to be formatted using APE format. So I've got my answer. Now I've got my proof coming up. So I'm going to say something like, for example, Junior realizes that Rowdy also lives in a difficult situation. Living on the reservation, Rowdy and, I spelled that wrong. Rowdy and Junior are both poor and their families have many social and economic issues that they have to deal with. While Junior has a dad who is an alcoholic, Rowdy has an abusive parent, period. Now, this would be the perfect opportunity to include a quote. So if I had a novel in front of me, I would go through and I would find my quote that I want to use to support the fact that Rowdy and Junior both have shared issues on the reservation that helps to solidify their friendship. And it may be something like Junior talking about how Rowdy always comes around for Thanksgiving because he doesn't have a home where he can celebrate or something like that. You throw your quote in to support it. And of course, after your quote, you're going to cite your source. So because this was written by Sherman Alexie, I'm going to write Alexie, the last name, and I'm going to put the page number, and I'm going to end the quote like that. And I'm going to explain myself. So I'm going to say something like, Junior and Rowdy's shared experience helps them each recognize similarity with one another and connect. When I might even say something like, this is most clearly seen when Junior leaves to go to Reardon and Rowdy is so upset. Rowdy feels betrayed, that Junior seems to be turning his back on their shared history. And of course, this is my rough draft. If I decide that the best proof to use is when Rowdy gets so angry at Junior when he decides to leave the reservation to go to school somewhere else, then I'm going to find a better quote. But what you want to do is start roughing up your paragraphs so that you've got the body of your essay written up in rough draft. Now, my next paragraph, I'm going to move on to my next point. So where I have shared history, now I might put in shared discrimination. And that's the next thing that I want to talk about. So I'm going to say something like, secondly, it is true that friendship starts at the moment And one person notices a shared experience like shared discrimination. And this is where I might talk about Junior and Gordy both being sort of nerds in their classes. Or it might be where I talk about, I might even be able to work in an example of Junior and, oh gosh, what's his name? The bully. I can't remember his name right now, but I throw, I might work in a commentary around both of them feeling like they've been picked on and they bond over this. Whatever it might be, this is where you want to find an example of, one character feeling like an outcast with the other. Another great one, if I'm going to use freaks and geeks, I might use the example of Sam and his friends all feeling like kind of nerds or all being picked on by Alan, and then using that as my example. So I might say something like, for example, in the TV show Freaks and Geeks, Sam and his friends bond and connect over how they are going to defeat the bully Alan, right? And I throw in an example here. When you're making reference to a title, you always want to italicize that title by using the italics button here. So up here, if I said, for example, in the novel The Absolutely True Diary, I'm going to italicize that title to show that it's a title. That's called MLA formatting. So in English class, whenever you do your citations and your formatting, you want to make sure that you are using those sort of little formatting tricks. Another thing you want to do is make sure you're double spacing your writing. So you use this little feature here, you highlight everything and you choose double to double space your writing. And you always want to use size 12 font and either Arial or Times New Roman when you're writing. Anyway, guys, I wanted to record this today so that you have an idea of how to format your paragraphs. Remember that you are using, so I'm just going to throw it up here. You want to make sure that you are using, so you're stating your thesis, you're using APE format for your body paragraphs. You refer to your T-chart, find your arguments or to decide on your arguments. And finally, you use quotes or specific references to the texts to support your ideas. And you should have at least one quote or one reference to a text, like either the novel or the TV show that you're going to use in order to support your ideas in your paragraph. I really hope that helps. I'm going to post this to the Google Classroom so that you can have a look at it as well as the Screencastify video. And that way you guys should be able to start writing the rough drafts of your paragraphs and get those in to the classroom post by Sunday at midnight. If you've got any questions, please make sure you email me to let me know, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope you are staying safe and healthy, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.